allow everybody to sit down, settle in, and get ready for the show. Thank you. Welcome, welcome. Welcome to the third annual My Story event. How are you guys feeling tonight? Let me hear it. I am Avia Minor. I'm the president of Scott Student Senate, and I'll be your host for tonight. I am very interactive and have a ton of energy, so I'm going to be calling on you guys to feed me all that energy, okay? So when I say clap, I want to hear a clap. Awesome. You guys are already doing so great. So I kind of want to start off by giving you some history of My Story. My Story was created 3 years ago by former Scott Senate President Magdalene Bruckner and Vice President Jaron Stewart, known at the time as ASMC. According to Maggie, they created My Story to address polarization that was happening on campus. They wanted everyone on campus to know that although we may look different, and we might come from different walks of life, we are all Scots. They wanted everybody to have a sense of pride in knowing that there are other Scots, exemplifying excellence and resilience. I love My Story because it's an opportunity to engage and learn about our peers, to find commonalities, and a reminder to respect each other's differences. My mother always told me that we have 2 ears and 1 mouth because we're supposed to listen twice as much as we speak. I think that this campus community and the rest of the world will look a lot differently if we took that lesson to heart. My Story is a very important opportunity for students to say whatever they feel, to share any experience or any personal narrative that they want. While that is awesome, it can also be triggering to some people. So at any time you guys feel uncomfortable, feel free to take a walk and come back when you feel comfortable. For the people on our Facebook Live, if you ever feel uncomfortable, log off and come back when you're ready. It takes a lot of courage to get up here and be vulnerable with an audience. So please speak about these people's stories with respect and cheer them on as they come in and show us something about their lives. I want to thank you guys so much for being here. I want to thank everybody who helped this come together. We had to do a lot of changes, but we're here today and we're super excited and super happy. So let's get this party moving. I want to invite our beautiful, I love that energy. But I would love to invite our wonderful president, Clarence Wyatt, to give us a few words to kick off this event. Can we get a round of applause?
I'll take wonderful anytime. Beautiful would have been stretching it, so I do want to thank Scott Student Senate for organizing this event, because it is one of the ones that we look forward to most every year since it has started. Especially want to thank Ezzy for her work on this and inviting me for giving me the honor of offering a few words as we begin this evening. Each of us has many things that make us who we are. And for some of us, the weight of history and society makes some of those elements especially burdensome and challenging. We all must be cognizant of, sensitive to, and supportive of those among us who deal with these special burdens. Ultimately, though, all of these things, and those that are more particular to us, make us who we are as individuals. As people, and certainly as a college, we should be about nurturing, challenging, and yes, loving those with whom we share this space and this time. Those people with whom we are engaging at this moment in all their complexity, contradiction, promise, and grace. All that makes us each who we are. History teaches us lessons of people who live lives of purpose, kindness, and grace. The fullest of those lessons also teaches us of their imperfections. Imperfections that are equally instructive and that make these people's purpose, kindness, and grace even more astounding and affirming. But we do not have to look only to history for such lessons. If we watch, if we listen and hear, we find such people around us every day. We can learn from them and reinforce them and ourselves in making each day an opportunity to be better, to do better. We can strive each day to make the part of the world we touch one in which empathy and kindness guide us, in which the realization that we all rise or fall together empowers us. As we strive, we will sometimes fall short. But it is in the striving that we realize our full humanity. It is in the striving in which we reach for the spark of the divine that lives in us all. Thanks to all of you for being here this evening. Thanks to all of you, particularly who will share your stories. Thanks again to Scott Senate for organizing this event. From Lobi and for me, thank each of you again for who you are and all that you do. Thank you.
Can we have another round of applause for President Wyatt? Now I would like to introduce a beautiful young lady. She brings joy to this world, and she's such an impactful individual. Can I get a round of applause for Shreya Roy?
Hello everyone. Thank you for the introduction, Javier. I'm Shreya Roy. I'm a sophomore biochem major here, and today I'm going to talk about my story. my journey from India to Monmouth College. When I received my letter of acceptance from Monmouth College, I was thrilled, but at the same time, 1,000 different thoughts crossed my mind. Will I be able to do it? Will I be able to live alone 8,000 miles away from my parents and my family? Will I be able to adjust to the new culture and perform well academically? Being an only child, I was concerned about my parents too. But after talking to a faculty member of the biochemistry department, I realized that this college had a lot of opportunities which would help me grow as a person. I also realized that I was going to miss out on a big opportunity if I did not attend Monmouth. Hence, I started my journey on 9th August 2019. Because of several flight cancellation and delays, my parents and I finally reached Monmouth on 11th August. In case you're wondering how different Monmouth is from India, let me tell you. I come from a city of 4 million people, so Monmouth was definitely a very small town for me. People here walked and drove cars on the right side of the road instead of the left. Also, I grew up learning the metric system, kilograms for weight, meters for distance instead of miles, and most importantly, Celsius for temperature instead of Fahrenheit. I remember going to the doctor one time and telling her my weight in kilograms. She stared at me for a little while and asked me if I knew it in pounds. I said, I have no clue. The biggest difference between India and Monmouth, though, was the food. In my freshman year, I remember every time I went to the cafeteria, I had a bottle of hot sauce in my bag because I was so used to the spices used in the Indian meals. Despite the differences, I adjusted pretty easily and made a new group of friends in no time. The time difference between Monmouth and India is 12 hours. So it was very hard for me to communicate with my family, my friends, and I miss them a lot. I started growing homesick after 2 months. When I saw students going home every weekend, I felt so sad. On family weekend, I remember locking myself up in the room and crying because everyone's families had come to visit them except mine and my other friends. But fortunately, I had a very good professor who took me and my other international friends out to eat. However, when the cold hit, it became extremely difficult for me because in India it does not drop below 75 even in winter. I started struggling to get out of bed. I started getting bad grades. I used to beat up myself so much and I stayed up nights trying to get my grades right, but I couldn't. My advisor, when she listened to me, she advised me to go to the counselor. And after talking to her, she told me I had symptoms of depression. When I heard the word depression, I was shocked. Growing up, I had learned that depression was only for the weak people. I started questioning myself, am I weak? And then that's when my friends started playing such an important role in my life. They told me that they believed in me and they loved me more than I loved myself. And that's when I realized I have been so hard on myself. If I could go back in time, I would tell my younger self not to be so hard on myself and tell her that depression is okay. It's not a sign of weakness and it's okay to reach out. This is why I'm thankful to Monmouth. It exposed me to the culture which accepts depression. Thankfully, I'm doing much better right now. I have learned to acknowledge my feelings instead of keeping it within myself. To Mom and Dad, I know it's 5 a.m. in India right now. I don't know if you're watching this or not, but I love you a lot and I hope I make you proud one day. Thank you.
Can we get another round of applause for Shreya? That was such a beautiful to recognize that we are doing a social media takeover. So if any of these stories remind you of your own, feel free to share it using the hashtag MyStoryMatters and add Scott Stevenson in. Without further ado, I want to introduce a great human being. I am so happy and so lucky to know him. He has been here for a short amount of time, but already have left such a great impression on this campus. Can we please give a warm round of applause for Tyreek Walker?
Hello, my name is Tyreek Walker, and today I wanted to share my story. In my first classes here at Monmouth, my ILA teacher asked me some of my core values. In my first AP Psych class back in high school, I was asked about some important principles of my life. I was asked some of the greatest morals in my homeroom class, and there was one common answer: family. Family is one of the most important things to me, and I don't feel like I would be where I am today without them. Of course, my mom and dad helped grow, shape, and mold me into the man I am today. But today I want to talk about my siblings, specifically my brother. When I was younger, I always used to spend time with my older cousins. At that time in my life, I wanted to be just like them. Everything they had, I wanted. Everything they did, I wanted to do. Back at home, I just had my older sister, and I would see her occasionally because we had different moms. So the times I had with my older cousins were important to me because they were like the brothers I never had. I couldn't wait to have a brother. People would ask me all the time, if your mom had a baby, would you want a boy or a girl? Of course, I always said a boy because I couldn't wait to have fun with someone 24/7. A couple years passed, and my parents got married, and soon after my mom got pregnant. I was so excited. My time had finally come. I was going to get the brother I dreamed of, but she was having a girl. I remember my 8-year-old self being heated that my sister was going to have all the fun with a new addition to our family for years to come. I was outnumbered 2-1, and I wasn't loving that. Then my mom became pregnant again. A minor setback for a major comeback, I thought. But I struck out again. At this time, I started to feel lonely. I didn't have anyone who was around my age who I could relate to. I mean, I had friends, but I would see them ever so often. At least my older sisters had sisters she could paint nails, do hair with, and whatever else girls do. Me, I had no one. Then my mother got pregnant again. Third time's a charm, right? God said nope, and I had another sister. As time passed, I grew older, and it didn't matter to me anymore. I started to understand that I didn't need to have a brother to have fun with my siblings. Things I wish I could do with the brother, I did with them. We started to have pillow fights, play video games, and play sports. Then my mother was expecting again. And lo and behold, she had a boy. God really does work in mysterious ways. All that time while I was young, I always wanted a little brother around my age who can grow up and be my best friend. And now, almost a decade removed, and 4 sisters later, I have a brother and a friendship between all my siblings. But the bond I have with my brother is special. I see how he looks at me the same way I used to look at my older cousins. He always wants to do what I do and do what I did. In this aspect, he admires me and has become my inspiration. What is important to note is that with him looking up to me, it kind of has made me tighten up as a person because I know someone's watching me. And to know that you're an example to someone is very important. And that's why his admiration is my inspiration. And also, I always wanted to leave this lasting thought. Make sure you look for the things you want in the right places. At the
said his story, so I want to thank you so much for sharing that. I would like to begin to introduce another wonderful human being. Honestly, I am so jealous of his style. He's super awesome, and I can't wait for you guys to hear his story. So without further ado, let's introduce Iver Pacheco.
Before I start, I need to make sure that you know this isn't going to be a sob story. I don't want your pity, and I don't want you to think that I'm a broken person. That being said, I've come too far from my suicide of 14-year-old self to depend on others' emotions to make myself feel validated. Most of you who know me know that I'm flamboyant, queer, trans guy. It's kind of hard not to realize I'm flamboyant when I'm here like this, and you saying like, child, anyway, and point blank period, no tampon. Shout out to Julio for that last part. My close friends also know I suffer from severe depression and anxiety, but who doesn't nowadays? But before I go further, I think I have to officially introduce myself before I introduce my story. So, my name is Iver. I use he, him, his pronouns, and sometimes they, them. I'm a sophomore in a psych major with a Spanish minor, and I'm from Chicago, South Side. I grew up in Gage Park, but currently live in West Lawn. And for my Chicagoans, I live right by Midway, and I attend the Hancock. And it might not look like it, but yes, I'm Mexican. Yes, I understand when people talk shit in Spanish. And yes, with the last name Pacheco, tengo una bala en la frente, but my Spanish isn't the best. Being Mexican in Chicago South Side is pretty easy, not gonna lie. Growing up, I thought that the world looked like my neighborhood, a predominantly Hispanic area with occasional outlier. I was wrong. I learned the hard way that I'm not the norm, rather I'm the other. Despite being othered, I know I have privileges that my hermanos and hermanas do not. I live an easier life in a system that was built to target melanin-filled skin. I don't have the fear of being picked on because of my ethnic features. I have the freedom to be assumed as something other than Mexican. But like Shane Quaison has said, every breath we take has to be given back, but a 9-year-old boy didn't teach me that lesson. Growing up in a machista-filled household grew difficult for a trans guy like me. I was told I could be anything I wanted. That's why my father and my grandparents came to America after all. An opportunity at life that they would never have had in the ranchitas that they grew up in. So why was it when I came out as trans, they told I was playing games? Games that had no manual to, and I was wandering around aimlessly, waiting for another player to shoot me dead. What they didn't know was I played games countlessly. I played all sorts of games that they could barely begin to grasp. What I played as the most was the imposter. I would wake up early to do my hair like all the other girls in my middle school. I would take hours to do my makeup to satisfy societal demands, but not for my own satisfaction. I wore dresses that made my skin crawl and my stomach so upset that I would have panic attacks in the bathroom. But playing the imposter gets tiring and you can only live like that for so long. I stripped away from the label, slowly but surely, and I became me. I cut my waist-length hair short. But let me tell you, trying to make my hairstylist cut it was so hard because I might regret it. 1, it's hair. 2, it can go back. So 3, chop, chop, chop that shit off. I also began to wander into the men's sections of clothing stores, and I would get yelled at by my parents, my mother specifically. But my excuse was that the t-shirts in the men's sections were cheaper, and it's true, and it's absurd and unfair, but that's a different story. And I began to go by my pronouns. I began to respect myself to not let others trample over my being. Because when you let people misgender and dead name you, you allow them to break the very foundation that you cried blood, sweat, and tears over. The very foundation you took forever to build because you thought that you were being too harsh on others, because you thought that your name was too hard to pronounce, and because you thought you didn't deserve the bare minimum of respect. Newsflash, you deserve the same amount of respect that the carrot in Starbucks is given. Like I said before, I'm not here for your pity. I'm here because people thought I had a story worth telling. I'm here because I know not all of you have trans friends or family members, and I know not all of you know trans people because 80% of Americans don't. So what a representation you've seen about us is what the media has shown, and if I'm being honest, We've always been the butt of the joke for decades. And if that means me airing out a single dirty sock for you to begin to comprehend that trans people are worthy of something, then I'd air out an entire week's worth of laundry. I'm also here because I needed my story heard. If I would have been told that there were other trans people of color that had survived and transitioned successfully, I would have saved myself a good portion of my angsty teen years. I would have also saved myself years of self-hatred and self-pity. And to quote Hannah Gadsby, I don't tell you this so you think of me as a victim. I am not a victim. I tell you this because my story has value. My story has value. I tell you this because I want you to know. I need you to know what I know. To be rendered powerless does not destroy your humanity. Your resilience is your humanity. Thank you.
Guys, honestly, I enjoyed that energy. Can we give them another round of applause? Awesome. That was an amazing story. Thank you so much for being here today. Before I move forward, I just want to know, how you guys feeling? How you doing so far? It's not that good? How you doing so far? Is it good? All right. Okay, well, guess what? It's about to get hot in here. I know it's winter, but y'all might want to take off your coats because it's about to get a little toasty up in here. Before I invite our next act to the stage, I would like to introduce everybody first. So with that being said, the Red Hot Scots are comprised of Senior Captain Emily Wren, Senior Captain Carly Dunham, Junior Elisa Pitt, Sophomore Allie Clay, Sophomore Haley Milton, Freshman Maddie Bay Singh. Tonight's performance was choreographed by Emily Wren and Captain Carly Dunham. Can we please get a wonderful round of applause for the Red Hot Scots?
Ladies and gents, this is the moment
Guys, that dance was so beautiful. Now, without further ado, when I first heard this story, I received chills. Can I have a warm welcome for Kirsten Minke?
My name is Kirsten. I'm a senior here, and this is my story. My alarm goes off, I wake up, and instantly I feel uncomfortable in my own skin. My mind starts to race as if my thoughts have been just waiting there for the gates to open. I start to wonder, what am I going to eat tonight, tomorrow, this weekend? Did I eat healthy enough to have this sandwich at lunch? Maybe I'll just stick to a salad. You know, I just feel really big. I'm not making a huge impact on anyone else's lives. People are going to be just fine if I'm not around. And I really just don't want to fight with my own thoughts anymore. I've struggled with an eating disorder, intrusive thoughts, and suicidal ideation for about 6 years now. From the moment I wake up in the morning till I fall asleep, I feel like I'm at war with myself. You see, eating disorder behaviors kind of become sort of an addiction. Once you weigh yourself, count the calories, or restrict just once, you have to continue that routine each day to feel some sort of security or control in life. However, I realized that through those behaviors, I actually lost all control over my own life through some false sense of safety. At times I've struggled with suicidal thoughts, sometimes on a daily basis. These thoughts might come and go quickly. I might be driving to the store and briefly think about driving off the side of the road. The thought passes and I move on with the rest of my day. But some like to stick around for quite some time. It feels like a huge weight is dropped on top of me and there's no way out from under it unless I just listen and I end it all. To just be done and finally listen to the thoughts that speak to me every day, to just be done. However, I'm very lucky. I'm incredibly lucky. I have so many people in my life that force me to keep fighting, even when fighting is the last thing that I want to do. I wish I could tell you that recovery is easy, because it's definitely not. I still fight these thoughts every single day. But please, reach out. Even if the only solution you can see right now is just to be gone, I promise that one day you're going to be very glad that you stayed. If we keep fighting together, I know that we can keep fighting and keep going together as well. Thank you.
Guys, wasn't that a powerful story? Wow, give me another round of applause. You guys are so awesome. I mean, wow. Without further ado, I would like to introduce someone that I have the pleasure of knowing personally. She has a vibrant spirit. She claims her space and she speaks unapologetically. Please give a warm round of applause for Nyasaina Komboka.
Hey everyone, so my name is Nyasaina. I am a sophomore here at Monmouth College. I'm a double major in environmental studies and sustainability and international business. I was born on the same day as the late Nelson Mandela. I have an infectious smile and even when I cry, I still smile. I'm my mother's first daughter. My name is Nyasaina and we all know that our names are an integral part of our identities. I was in 6th grade the first time that I saw a chameleon. I knew that they were created to manipulate their skin so that they could match their environment. The nature of chameleons reminds me of myself. I went to 4 different schools, lived in different homes, and I had different friendships my whole life. All these friendships came along with different nicknames. Some people call me Nyasaina, Nyasuguta, Nyaswiswi, Nyanya, Nyaswina, and the list goes on and on. It all came from a genuine place of love and admiration. I'm an international student from Kenya, and when I came to America, I did not intend to be called anything other than Nyasaina. I did not want my name to be Americanized. I wanted to cherish the title circle that my mother gave me. But as we all know, ethnic names make your tongue dance in a different kind of way. On my 4th day on campus, I was introduced to lifelong friends at the Intercultural House. We all sat in a circle and introduced our names and countries. And when my turn came and I mentioned my name, the expected silence filled the room. They asked me to repeat my name and I said it slower for them. And they said, "We'll call you Sai." And instantly, my identity was turned into a long sigh of relief because this was convenient for them. And so when my friends started texting me, they would text SAI or SY or SIGH or SI. Why did I let this happen? And that's when once again my chameleon came out. I was living in a different place, I ate different food, I dressed differently, and I had a different identity. So I continued my college experience with their version of myself. And this is an issue that most people with ethnic names go through. The history of cultural intolerance across the globe makes people believe that foreign names are too benign or too impoverished or too improper or too unprofessional. Therefore, the best thing to do is to break them apart and rename them. There are microaggressions that I faced here on campus. My first semester of my freshman year, my professor refused to say my name. He would call the roll call, "Cody, Zach, Anna." And when he reached my name, he would squint and say, yeah, I'm not going to say that. I received an email from a representative of our administration, and they thought that it would be okay to say, "Dear Nya hyphen." The Western corporate world will also not forget to remind people with ethnic names that our names are not welcome into the business world, because when they see names like Nyatichi, Niceran, Kerubo, Hiwat, they see impoverished, uneducated, go back to where you came from. And occasionally I am an accomplice to the very same system that belittles my name. I let my professor call me Nayasana. And whenever my friend heard her say that, she said, "That is not your name." And I said, "At least she's the only person who will call me by my name or attempt to call me by my name in a day." For a whole year, I stumbled over my identity. Should I introduce my name as Sai, or should I go by Nyasaina, which is my African title? My sister tried to call me Sai once, and I stopped her in her tracks. I said, "Nyamokami, my name is Nyasaina. It is not a Sai. I will not be convenient for you." I learned that when people move away from stereotypes, they would take their time to learn how to pronounce our names. They would write it down and go home and rehearse it over and over until our names sound like songs to them. They would come back the next day and ask me, "Have I got it right?" And if not, we would continue the cycle. This made me feel like I was worth someone's time, or my identity was not just a stereotype. So, if you're here, learn that it's not that I'm just a chameleon. I'm not just a chameleon. My name is Nyasaina Kwamboka, and I would love it if you called me that. Take your time to teach your tongue how to dance to the rhythm that my mother gave me. My name, Nyasaina, ties me to my ancestry. It ties me to my continent. It ties me to my country, my tribe, the Abagusi. Nyasaina means kind leader. Kwamboka means crossing a river. And since we have faculty here with us, please see that our names are appropriately pronounced for us, especially during commencement day. And I will continue to cherish my name, wear it like the title that it is, wear it like a crown, and I cannot wait to walk into the corporate world and let my name take up the space that it needs. Thank you.
What can I say after that, right? Wow. If the speaker from last year, if she was here, she would definitely say, on her commencement day, her name is Kyla Baker. On her commencement day, her principal called her name as Koala Baker. And she walked her little butt across the stage as Koala, and it left a lasting impact on her. Sometimes a name is just a name. Sometimes it's deeper than that. It's super important to respect people for the titles that they want to be called, whether that's gender pronouns or names. Now, without further ado, I just want to say that Scott Senate will always make a way so that your voices are heard. So with that being said, can you turn your attention to this screen? We have a speaker who cannot be with us physically due to remote learning, but we really wanted to share her story. Please warmly congratulate Madison Leigh Vineyard.
The struggle with my mental health began when I was in middle school, but really began to escalate when I was about 14. For as long as I can remember, I had experienced bullying in one form or another, The struggle with my mental health began when I was in middle school, but really began to The struggle with my mental health began when I was in to escalate when I was about 14. For as long as I can remember, I had experienced bullying in one form or another, which really took a toll on how I saw my
What can we say? Technical difficulties. Give us 1 second as we try to adjust.
That was the beginning. The time thing on the bottom said that it was the beginning. It was just loading.
Okay, awesome.
We just play it.
Yeah, we're gonna let them play it. We're gonna let them figure out the audio too. But please just bear with us. Thank you guys.
when I was about 14. For as long as I can remember, I had experienced bullying in one form or another, which really took a toll on how I saw myself and how I began to present myself to others. I felt the need to find affection through other means than just my peers, which ended with me being sexually assaulted at the age of 14 by someone that I thought was a close family friend. At first, I had an amazing support system through family and friends, which had encouraged me enough that I had started to better myself, getting my grades up, making the cheerleading squad, and just being an overall better person. As time went on, I began to really struggle with my mental health. I continuously had thoughts that if I had done something different, I wouldn't have been assaulted. I blame myself for what happened to me, even though I know that it wasn't my fault. As I entered high school, things just continued to get worse. I had started to feel the effects of the trauma that I had endured and eventually began experiencing depression and anxiety. I went years without a legitimate diagnosis of either disorder because my family didn't have insurance and couldn't afford for me to see a doctor. After graduating high school, I finally did seek help for my anxiety. I knew that I was going to college and wouldn't be able to function to the point of getting anything accomplished if I didn't find a way to better my anxiety. Unfortunately, the medication that the doctors had prescribed was not the best fit for my body and didn't help. Over the last several months, through isolation and insane online courses, I have once again been struggling with both my anxiety and depression. After realizing that I needed help to get myself help, I reached out to a mental health facility, and I am now seeing a therapist once every 2 weeks to better my mental health. And I have found healthy coping mechanisms that work best for me, such as journaling, spending time with friends, and just listening to music. I have grown tremendously because of the trauma that I have experienced in my lifetime. I'm currently studying behavioral neuroscience and looking for doctorate of psychology programs to be a child and adolescent clinical psychologist. I've used my trauma as a motivation to help others that have had experiences of their own personal traumas, and overall, to be the person I needed to have when I was younger. Living with a psychological disorder can be difficult, but what I have learned overall is that when it comes down to it, your mental health is just as important as your physical health, and it is 110% okay to ask for help.
Amazing. Can we give Madison another round of applause? Another round of applause.
Thank you guys so much. All right, are you guys ready? What is a Mom to College event without Scott's Pride? Can anybody answer that? What is a Mom to College event without Scott's Pride? Nothing. It doesn't exist. So what better way to show Scott's Pride than to bring out our lovely bagpipes? Give a warm round of applause for our fellow Scott, Karen Marshall.
Let's go, Karen.
my story, but I just want to leave you with a few thoughts. My story attempts to give us a chance to learn a little bit more about each other, to dive a little bit deeper than we would in every day. You never know about another person's experience until you ask them. So don't be afraid to share yourself with someone. Don't be afraid to look deeper than what you see. It's important, and that's what we can do to make this a better college community. I just want to leave you with a few words. Co-founder of My Story, Vice President Jaren Stewart said, "The first step to understanding is knowing. And with understanding, we can choose love. And when we choose love, we can heal. And when we heal, there's no longer a world of hurt people who hurt people. But the first step is knowing, and that's where My Story comes into play. Know somebody new today. All right? Thank you so much. I love that energy. I want to say thank you to everybody who had a hand in this. I want to say thank you to Scott Sennett. I want to say thank you to the AV Tech crew. Thank you so much, President Wyatt, for gracing us with your appearance today. Thank you so much, Student Affairs and Mario Doyle, for helping us get this space. We had a lot of things to change. I want to say thank you to our wonderful speakers. You did awesome. Can we say they did awesome? Can we get a round of applause? Okay. All right, guys, give a round of applause tonight for yourselves because you guys were an amazing audience. Give yourselves a round of applause. If you're watching remotely, use the clap hand emoji. You did awesome. You're amazing. All right, we just want to leave you guys with a wonderful night. Don't forget to treat each other with kindness. All right, bye.